12 visually stunning animated movies for adults that you cannot miss. Hi, my name's Christian Aris. Thank you for watching Marvelous Videos. Many a time, animated films are derided as flock for children, not getting the commendation they genuinely deserve. The technical mechanisms associated with animation have come a long way since its incipience. Earlier, we used to have hand drawings and character outlines, but living in today's computer-generated era, the style and panache they have on offer forms an integral part of cinema. One is bound to get smitten by the magnificent, picturesque visuals created entirely without the restraints on imagination. In this video, we'll be taking a look at 12 of the most visually stunning adult animated movies that you cannot afford to miss.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Heavy Metal, 1981. An astronaut brings home a green crystalline sphere for his daughter. The green orb melts the father and corners the young girl for its own motives. Introducing itself as the sum of all evils, the malicious sphere, known as Loc-Nar, intimidates the girl with an anthology of bizarre and fantastic tales of its influence. The first story is about Harry Canyon, a skeptical cab driver in a high-tech dystopian New York, who happens to find himself tangled with a damsel in distress. She is hauntingly pursued by vicious brutes who want to possess the Loc-Nar after her father discovered it. The second story accounts the ventures of a geeky teenager who is hurled into the fantasy world of Neverwhere. There, he is altered into a bald, good-looking, muscular man called Den, who is craved by all kinds of beautiful women. But he soon gets tussled into a conflict that revolves around the possession of the Loc-Nar. The third story circles around Captain Stern, who is an attractive but incorrigible rogue standing trial on account of several severe charges that the Loc-Nar tosses into chaos. The fourth story is about a World War II B-17 bomber plane that limps home after a bombing run, only to have the Loc-Nar ram into it and bring back the dead crew members as zombies. The fifth story chronicles a voluptuous stenographer at the Pentagon who happens to be kidnapped by a horny robot and a bunch of high aliens. The final tale shows Loc-Nar mutating a peaceful world into an evil army. Only Tarna, the last of the Tarakian warrior race, can requite the victims and stop the Loc-Nar. This 1981 Canadian-American adult animated science fantasy flick, directed by Gerald Potterton, happens to be one of the best animated movies that was ever created. Based on the American sci-fi and fantasy comics magazine of the same name, Heavy Metal literally has everything: violence, sex, nudity, humor, and an intelligent story. It's all there. It unquestionably happens to be a true classic of the 80s that received its due cult status eventually. What is spectacular is how the different animation styles are depicted. It's bound to remind you of the days before CGI. One of these styles is the rotoscoping technique wherein animators trace over motion picture footage frame by frame to create realistic action. The B-17 bomber, for instance, was shot using a 10-foot replica and then animated. The same goes for Tarna. Toronto model Carol Desbians was first used as a model for the animated character. Fantasy illustrator and painter Chris Achilleos then composed and painted the iconic promotional poster image of the film that features Tarna. The outstandingly stylized and diversified animation, especially the impressive sceneries, space vessels, and epic space stations, are aptly arresting along with Elmer Bernstein's orchestral score. Do give Heavy Metal a watch, a picture that is truly deserving of its cult symbol.
We're getting tiresome. This parchment will puzzle the beast. And now, attack!
Doomed Megalopolis, 1991. In the year 1908, Japan is going through a massive industrial revamp due to the impact of radical Western standards. Things such as machinery and politics move the country's prominence away from the heritage of the past, with Tokyo being the main focus of this movement. That's when Yasumasa Hirai is summoned from Kyoto to give advice on how to make Tokyo a blessed and profitable city in the East. His rival happens to be Yasunori Kato, an evil politician whose only wish is to destroy Tokyo entirely and, in turn, satisfy his ancestors. The future of Tokyo and the Japanese Empire lie in the hands of this duo. Shigeyuki Hayashi's Doomed Megalopolis is a supernatural anime adapted from Hiroshi Aramata's popular novel Teito Monogatari. It goes without saying that it introduced a large-scale audience to the intriguing world of anime. This 4-episode series boasts an ample amount of suspense-filled scenes along with a plethora of interesting and also disturbing imagery. Remember Gaku Tensoku, the robot used in the 3rd episode? Well, it happens to be 100% real and also marks Japan's first modern robot that was created back in 1929. Hayashi, while directing the animated adaptation, felt that his main challenge would be differentiating it from recent contemporaries, Tokyo: The Last Megalopolis and Tokyo: The Last War. The director ultimately made up his mind to fully utilize the liberty given to him by the animation and simply exploit the supernatural elements of the story. No wonder he came up with a far more illustrious style than would have been possible in live action. And do we even have to mention the score by Kazuhiko Toyama? Waste no time thinking whether you should jump in on this anime bandwagon or not. Just give it a shot. Waltz with Bashir, 2008. Ari Folman is an Israeli filmmaker who previously served in the IDF during the Lebanon War. One night, he happens to meet an old friend from that period, who tells him of recurring nightmares wherein he is chased by 26 very angry dogs. He connects his dreams to their experiences in the war, but surprisingly, Ari can barely remember anything specific from that period in his life. That's when he decides to meet and interview his old friends and comrades from all around the world. With the sole purpose of uncovering the truth, Ari probes deeper and deeper, and soon finds the real cause of his amnesia. Writer, producer, and director, Ari Folman's 2008 Israeli animated war docudrama, Waltz with Bashir, happens to be completely avant-garde, with groundbreaking animation. What's absolutely remarkable is its spectacular way of delivering its message about the Middle East in the most enthralling style. Believe us when we tell you that this movie took literally 4 years to complete and became the first animated picture to be nominated for the Golden Globe Award for the Best Foreign Language Film. This exclusive work of art, unparalleled in its harmonious blend of raw power and unusual visual beauty, is a journey of self-discovery. There are a few people who have to be credited for putting their best effort and bringing life and zeal to it. Art director and illustrator David Polonsky, along with Yoni Goodman, the director of animation. Even if the movie is animated, it has on display a lot of graphic violence along with some of the most haunting images one has ever seen. There are scenes that show horses dying on the streets, families being shot, all bluntly tragic. The fantastic musical score by Max Richter enhances the movie with a magnificent depth and emotional impact to the stimulating visuals. There's this particular scene from which the title of the film is derived, where one of Folman's fellow soldiers waltzes literally in the middle of a shootout. He's shown firing a heavy machine gun while encircled by posters of Bashir. It is beyond riveting. Do give Waltz with Bashir a shot. It's bound to stick with you. Jinro, The Wolf Brigade, 1999. Kazuke Fuse, An ex-cop has been demoted after he refused to execute a young girl who happened to be a suicide bomber. While visiting the grave of the deceased terrorist, he encounters Kay, who claims to be her sister. The two develop a friendship, but eventually get pulled into conflicts between the government and an underground terrorist organization. Hiroyuki Okiura's Jin-Ro the Wolf Brigade happens to be a Japanese political thriller that is bound to be etched at the back of your mind for years and years to come. The movie can very easily be regarded as one of the finest animated feature films of all time, and the fact that it focuses more on the emotions of the characters over graphic bloodshed and action is what sets Jin-Ro apart from the rest of its contemporary releases. Filled with an abundance of surprising twists, a grim atmosphere, eerily familiar streets, and a brilliant musical score by Hajime Mizoguchi, everything contributes to Jin-Ro's excellence. Do not miss out on this visually stunning anime.
When the children's psi was combined, how much energy was ultimately generated and how were you planning to store it? Stop it! Enough!
Serial Experiments Lain, 1998. It's been a week since school student Chisa Yamada committed suicide, and her classmates begin to get emails from her. Hearing such gossip around school, Lane Iwakura, a shy adolescent, finds the same message and ends up having a conversation with the dead girl. Yamada tells Lane that she's not dead, but has just left her physical body and now resides within the virtual reality world called Wired. What follows is Lane getting tangled in a series of confusing and bizarre events that find her digging deeper into the mystery of the network. This 1998 Japanese experimental television series, directed by Ryutaro Nakamura and written by Chiaki J. Konaka, happens to touch on themes of vivid materialism and the complications that come with an entirely materialistic understanding of individuality. Initially, the story might not make much sense, but trust us when we tell you that each episode builds new folds, which in turn creates quite the atmosphere. By the time you finish the series, everything will fall into place. Director Nakamura takes a leap of faith with the style and presentation that makes Serial Experiments Lain an uplifting breath of fresh air. The slick blend of celluloid animation, computer graphics, and some live-action footage creates a world that is completely unique to itself. So rest assured, you'll be in for a great experience as soon as you step into the world of Lain. Golgo 13, The Professional, 1983. Professional assassin Duke Togo, codenamed Golgo 13, only cares about himself and his money. He is invincible to his enemies and irresistible to women, his life dominated by violence and sex. Togo is given the mission of assassinating the son of oil tycoon Leonard Dawson, and he effortlessly carries out the task with just a single bullet. But that leads him to become the target of Mr. Dawson, who, provoked by the death of his only son, has sworn to finish him off. This 1983 Japanese animated action drama, directed by Osamu Dezaki, has on display the agony and affliction of having to deal with the loss of a loved one to perfection. It'll drive you to the edge of your seat right from beginning to end. Bursting with scenes of outrageous detailed deaths and the generous usage of female nudity, this animated movie firmly happens to be for the adult audience. But having said that, Golgo 13 doesn't let these two elements overshadow its mechanical and profound features. The cinematography by Hirokata Takahashi and editing by Mitsuo Tsurubuchi deserves a special mention. The transitional shift from the usage of freeze frames to slow motion scenes in order to split the screen is very stylishly done. The animation is spectacular. The fact that distinctive hues and lighting effects are used to represent a certain character's mood is simply marvelous. Not many know this, but Golgo 13 also happens to be one of the first animated films to incorporate CGI animation. So, if you're in the mood for a nice crime thriller, look no further. Belladonna of Sadness, 1973. Jean and Jeanne happen to be the happiest newlyweds residing in a rural village in medieval France. But their wedding night comes to a brutal halt when the local evil baron and his courtiers perform the Droit du Seigneur on Jeanne. She is eventually exiled from her village, and that leads her to make a pact with the devil himself to gain powers and to take revenge. This 1973 Japanese art film, directed and written by Eiichi Yamamoto, will genuinely blow you away. The incredible gamut of artistic imagination, along with Yamamoto's style of direction, levitating between the classical watercolor sketches and the transgressive underground comics, is worth a mention. The cinematography by Shigeru Yamazaki and editing by Masashi Furukawa takes Belladonna of Sadness to an all-new level. Heightening all of this is the brilliant musical score by Masahiko Sato, which goes hand in hand with the visuals. The soundtrack is quite peppy given the era it came from, and ranges from rock to psychedelic to way beyond. The movie's narrative reach may surpass its grip, but full credits to the excellent visual imagery that naturally manages to keep the viewers beguiled. Do not hesitate in giving this masterpiece a shot. Tekkonkinkreet, 2006. Kuro and Shiro are two orphans trying to keep control of the streets of the fictional Pan-Asia city of Takaramachi. In spite of their extreme differences, the pair complement and support each other. But the city also has a tinge of evil existing, which lays its sight on the duo, coercing them to get involved in a fight with a group of gang members and vicious assassins. The 2006 Tekkonkinkreet happens to be the directorial debut of Michael Arias. This feature-length anime film boasts a striking combination of beautiful animation, background sounds, and sentiments, laying emphasis on the character interactions and arcs. Mixing in elements of corruption, vehemence, humor, and imagination, Arias does a splendid job as the Helmer. The vibrancy of the color palettes, the exceptional fluidity, and the attentiveness paid to every minuscule detail is what makes this movie simply arresting. The work of the camera, bouncily speeding through tall buildings and overpasses, will literally give you a sense of claustrophobia. You also can't miss out on the exciting action and chase scenes. Give Tekkonkinkreet a shot for the sheer brilliance of the animation it boasts. You won't regret it. Perfect Blue, 1997. Mima Kirigoe happens to be the lead singer of a Japanese idol group, Cham. Encouraged by her manager, Rumi, she decides to quit the group and become a full-fledged actress. However, her bold career alternative doesn't go well with her band's male fans. They start posting sinister threats and unnervingly private information about her life online. Gradually, people who helped Mima embrace her new career choice end up getting mercilessly killed, and she starts being pursued by a fixated fan who is ready to go to greater extents. This 1997 Japanese psychological thriller by Satoshi Kon is not only engaging, but a sheer treat to the eyes. Perfect Blue initially begins as a regular thriller and then takes a complete 360-degree turn, confusing audiences with speedy changes of sequences, viewpoints, and even the framework for that matter, till we just don't know what to have faith in anymore. All of this is done so delicately that we eventually become entirely enchanted by the movie. The diverse camera slants set a very dreamlike, mystical environment. Remember the zoom-out shot from Mima's apartment? That was distinctly impressive. Street Fighter II, the animated movie, 1994. M. Bison happens to be the ruthless leader of the enigmatic crime syndicate called Shadow Law. He's been on the lookout for an extraordinary fighter for a long time now, and he finally finds it in Ryu, a Japanese martial artist who never stays in one place long enough for Bison to confront him. Bison, however, learns about Ryu's American best friend and fighting rival, Ken Masters, and decides to hunt him down and hypnotize him in Ryu's place. In the meantime, Captain Guile of the United States military joins hands with Interpol agent Chun-Li in the hopes of arresting Bison and putting a halt to his global circle of crimes. This 1994 anime film adaptation of the Street Fighter II fighting game is directed and written by the Japanese anime director and Nihonga artist Gisaburo Sugi. The movie has on display mind-blowing martial arts scenes, essentially capturing the real atmosphere of the video game. Remember the introduction scene where Ryu fights Sagat? Well, that is probably one of the best intros that an anime film has ever come up with. The frame rate in Street Fighter II is extraordinarily slick, so good that it literally looks rotoscoped. The artwork is magnificently thorough, and the fighting scenes look realistic. Every punch is animated. The close-up shots, as well as the long ones, are used extensively to give a very lively watching experience. We also have Tetsuya Komuro and Yuji Toriyama's musical score hitting all of the right chords. Street Fighter II happens to be a great movie in its own way, and we highly recommend you give it a watch.
Please hurry, Chief! Wake her up! Wake her up right now!
Paprika, 2006. The plot revolves around a group of scientists who are developing a device called DC Mini.
This little device is called the DC Mini. It's the scientific key that allows us to open the door to our dreams.
That permits the user to record and view other people's dreams. However, a thief happens to use the technology and starts controlling and terrorizing others. Chaos ensues, and soon reality begins to take on a different meaning. Satoshi Kon's 2006 science fiction thriller unquestionably happens to be a visual spectacle. It takes a meticulous person to come up with a feature film as good as Paprika, and for this, the late director and co-writer deserves every bit of credit. He mixes reality and dreams in a way that is only possible through animation. Possibly his best and indisputably most beautiful piece of work, this dream-based anime is profoundly textured with a riot of luxe colors and a plethora of ingenious ideas. Not many know this, but Christopher Nolan's Inception was actually inspired by Paprika. The plotline tends to get more compound as the movie progresses, and so does the imagery. Also remarkable is Susumu Hirasawa's musical score that is infectiously good, especially the opening piece. Do be sure to check out this masterpiece. You'll regret it if you don't.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.